I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you. Hi everyone, I'm Jason Balara, and this is the Know Your Why podcast. Today I'm here with Ryan Johnson. Ryan began investing in real estate in 2017. He has a background in anesthesiology as a practicing nurse anesthetist in Houston, Texas. Ryan, let me stop there because I think this is going to sound way better just having you tell your story. But first of all, thanks for coming on the show today.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It's always nice to network with fellow healthcare professionals. Even though you administer healthcare to animals, I administer healthcare to humans. There's a lot of similarities for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, why don't you go ahead and tell us about that? Tell us your background. Tell us kind of how you started as an anesthetist, and then also that transition into real estate. We'll talk about all of that.
Yeah, so I'm originally from Louisiana. I've called Houston my home for over 20 years now, and I've been a certified registered nurse anesthetist for 14 years with a license, 3 years of training to get that degree, so 17 years total in the anesthesia space. And then I worked, in the hospital as a nurse and just as techs and stuff in school, so 21 years total doing hospital work. And I just quit my W-2 job in April, so I definitely want to get into that. But I kind of just followed the traditional pathway. I'm like, okay. Didn't really know what I wanted to do in college. A buddy of mine was like, "Oh, I'm going to be a CRNA. Like this is the potential." And I'm like, "Oh, okay, that sounds good. I'll do that." Right. And so I did that. Jumped in. Studied hard. Got into school. Did well in grad school. Started working. And I do love the anesthesia side of it. I do like that. Giving drugs to manipulate one's physiology so they can undergo this this procedure that can be excruciatingly painful, and I can make you not remember that and not feel anything while you're under. That is pretty cool. And I kind of did what most new graduate practitioners do. I want the hard cases. Give me the sickest of the sick. You want to gain that experience. And I realized probably about 7 years into that career that I was like, oh man, this is once you have maybe a few bad outcomes, whether they're your fault or not, and you're kind of put in these tragic situations, like almost sometimes weekly, it's like, do I want to kind of continue doing this? And you start realizing that, okay, at the hospital that today is a boring day is a good day, right? So I'm 37 years old at the time. I'm walking into work every day. I don't want to be challenged. I just want to do the easiest cases ever and get out of here. And I realized that, okay, do I want to be really maybe what should be in the prime of my career, just walking in, just wanting to be bored to death? And so I realized that I needed to shift. And, I definitely, if there was someone in that hospital that was burned out, it was definitely me. So, at the time I was just looking, to dump my brain power into other projects. I did some research papers. I tried the academic route, did a lot of QA type projects around the department. And I realized that I was just kind of decreasing my overall time value, right? I'm a salaried guy. If I'm working 100 hours a week writing, or 100 hours to write this paper, I just decreased my hourly salary by X amount. And so that really wasn't going to work for me. So at the time, I just saw land was appreciating. I think this was back in 2017 toward the end. Land was appreciating, and I had a little bit of cash, and I had just opened up a home equity line of credit. And I was like, okay, let me buy this lot and just hold it. And my initial mindset was like, I'm just going to build this land portfolio. And I bought the lot and maintained it and sold it a little over a year later, and I doubled my money. And I was like, oh wow, that was the easiest money that I've ever made, and much easier than working in the operating room and taking more call and stuff. So I at that point, or during that whole period, I kind of went down the bigger pockets rabbit hole, learned all there was, to know, networked with a lot of people, ended up, partnering or networking with an individual that had about 40 or 50 single family and small multifamily properties. He was a contractor, started following him around his job site, and just learning from him. And I eventually got the opportunity to partner with him on a flip where I funded, a portion of the deal. I kind of kept track of his budget for him to take some mundane task off his hands. And he did the work, and, we partnered on that, and then we partnered on another one, and then we partnered on another one. And then he decided he wanted to be a builder. And I'm like, okay, well, I had this line of credit, like, let's build some houses. And so we started building houses to sell. And kind of during his evolution of being a builder and my evolution of being an investor, I'm like, hey, like I want more rentals. I had bought a few rentals here and there, but I wanted to just kind of continue the development, but develop my own personal portfolio. So we started building small multifamily properties in Houston. And we still do that today. I'm building 2 right now. I'm selling one that I built 2 years ago, building 2 more, planning 2 more. So I kind of have that little operation going with him where I'm building small, I'm building assets. I'm using my personal asset, my home, and building other assets. And so I'm basically stacking equity, right? I'm using equity to build equity that pushes off cash flow. And at that point, I was just like, I had a complete mindset shift. I'm like, okay, anesthesia, that's a lot of hard work to get the same money. I could potentially do this and 10x what I can do in anesthesia with a lot less, mental strain and just a lot less time. So I kind of just completely shifted my focus. My whole identity just changed to like, I'm going to do this and I'm not going to do this anymore. And, I'm going to still keep my anesthesia license, but, I wanted to just set myself up to where I could just do anesthesia on my terms. 2020, I started passively investing as well in other people's syndications. And in 2020, I did a multifamily mentorship program, finished that up and just, started looking for partners. And I ended up partnering last year with, a gentleman that, had about 1,400 units as a lead sponsor. And he was looking for partners. So we did a JV deal together, and it worked really, really well. And, I was taking off tasks from him and we realized, okay, we have complementary skill sets, right? Like you're more acquisitions, I'm more investor relations. And we had another partner that was more underwriting. And so we formed like a trio and we formed an entity together. And now we operate under the GenWealth Capital brand.
It's very cool. It's very cool. And I think I want to back up to you talked a bit about sort of the mental strain and the grind that goes along with being a medical professional. And it's something that I've heard from other medical professionals that I've interviewed. It's something that I've experienced myself. And it's something I think people don't know about, right? It's something that people in the outside world don't understand. Like, yes, you're doing amazing work, right? As you described it, you're essentially allowing people to have these procedures that would be very painful or stressful. And you're essentially able to alleviate all of that and have them have the procedure without being, without even maybe even remembering it. And yeah, when you start out, you're gung ho and you want to do the hardest cases. You want to be tested. You want to be the guy, but it's very, very mentally draining to always have, you've got someone's life for you. It's people, for me, it's animals, but you've got someone's life in your hands every day, like every case, right? Because it's like, yeah, the vast majority of times everything goes right, but you have someone's life in your hand every single time. So I think that it's a thing that maybe gets lost when people think about medical professionals and their parents want their kids to be doctors and things like that. And it's like, it's great. It's a very noble set of profession, but there's a lot that goes with it that isn't really known or talked about. So it's inspiring to see when people have realized that's what's going on and sort of taken the steps to alleviate it, because a lot of people just kind of keep going through that basically forever until they're completely burnt out and can't go on. So finding another avenue and for us it's real estate, but finding another avenue that you can sort of put your efforts into and shift your focus a little bit and find something that's quite frankly more rewarding and sustainable on a financial level, then can allow you to, if you decide to go back to doing anesthesia, you can, right? You have that option, and it won't be because you need the money. It'll be because you like doing it. And there's a huge distinction there.
Yeah. I kind of 2 points on that is like, what kind of really got me with the healthcare is like, you're in a hospital and, unless you're working at like maybe like a plastic surgeon's office or something, like none of the patients really want to be there, right? I mean, it's just, you're there and it's like, it's a hassle. Maybe you have kids at home. You're going to be hurting after. You don't really want the surgery, but you need it done. Right. And so, number one, like they're your clients and you treat them like clients, but none of them really want to be there. So it's kind of like this special place in that most of the time, if you own a business and you're giving a service or have a product, most of those people probably want it or need it, and they don't necessarily dread it. So in our profession, unless you're getting some elective cosmetic surgery and those people want it, this is kind of more, like if you're there because you truly are sick and you need surgery. I mean, most people are, they think they're going to die or they think they're not going to do well. And so it can be a stressful situation. And number two, I think why a lot of healthcare practitioners, physicians and nurse anesthetists, and I'm sure that's like, you go to school for so long and spend so much time and money and effort and brain power becoming a vet or becoming a physician. And that is so woven into your identity that it's hard to let it go. Right. And the income gap is huge, right? I mean, you can't just, it's not like you're making just a small amount of money where you go like, oh, I can just leave that and go do this. You have a huge gap to cover if you're trying to start a new venture. But then also it's the identity side of it, right? It's like you even change your name, right? You're Dr. Jason, right? And so it's like the identity in healthcare is just so, I mean, it's so strong, right? Because you change your name, it's on your license, it's on your marriage certificate, it's on everything. Right. It's probably going to be on your obituary. Right. And so it is. I mean, it's Yeah, your identity has changed for life. So you almost have to kind of, if you want to make the switch, you almost have to change your identity. And that's kind of, I was ready to make the switch. So I kind of focused on that first. It's like, okay, for anyone to take me serious in this space, I'm not this nurse anesthetist anymore. I am the real estate guy that also does anesthesia. I kind of put that first and I just led with that with every conversation I have.
Yeah. No, it's a really great point. And I think an important thing to realize, and it's maybe not necessarily, I mean, anybody coming from a different profession and coming into real estate, you have to some degree shift your identity, but you're absolutely right that the amount of time and effort and in a lot of cases money for school, people there's tremendous amount of student loans and stuff. And a lot of that has to do with people in medical professions because they have the additional years of schooling and all of that. So you have all of this stuff that you spent all of this time sort of building up to create this identity that is you, the doctor, you, the veterinarian, you, the anesthetist, whatever it is, but one of these high level training careers. And then it's almost like, and everyone, your network is in that space, right? Everyone everyone I know is basically a veterinarian or veterinary technician. Like everybody who's known me over the last 15, 16 years, like they're all veterinarians and veterinary technicians. And I'm sure it's the same on, sort of the human medicine side. Like I'm sure a lot of doctors and nurses and anesthetists and all of that. Oh, yeah. So it's kind of like, then you say to them, I'm going to do real estate now. And it's like, nobody in that space gets it or takes you seriously. And then you're new to the real estate space. So nobody there takes you seriously. So it's definitely a tricky spot to be in. And you have to commit to it. Like you said, you sort of started there. So it's a challenging evolution on top of just learning the nuts and bolts of actually doing real estate, of having these, building these small multis around Houston and then switching into commercial multifamily real estate. There's a lot that goes into it. So, and it's a great point. When you made that switch, did you always had the intent of sort of leaving the anesthesiology field? Was that kind of your goal, or you thought you'd try to, sort of balance it? What was your initial thought process and how did it evolve?
Yeah, I mean, I think it went from, this is a diversification play, right? And that's when I wasn't super burned out on the anesthesia. Like, I'm just doing this to diversify my family's income, right? Or my family's portfolio, right? It's all in mutual funds and all of my 401k. I have a little cash here. Let me put it into real estate. And that's how a lot of people start. And that's a great way to start. I mean, it's definitely, real estate is an awesome diversification play. I mean, if you're looking to, if you're already a high income individual and you're kind of maxed out on all your other investments, I mean, you should definitely have real estate in your portfolio. And that's kind of where I started. And then the kind of burnout hit, and I started partnering with other people that were just, hey, you could not do that anymore if you want. You could do this. I'm like, just being around other people. I think my first partner on the flip, he was just like the serial entrepreneur guy that had started and sold many businesses, and just kind of a self-made guy. And he was like, what's your goal? And I'm like, I'd like to be able to go part-time or have the ability to quit my job if I want in 10 years. And he like laughed at me. It's like 10 years. Like, why so long? You could do that in like 5, elite at the most. You could do it in 5. And I ended up doing it in about 5. And once you just kind of start, when you see the opportunity, like, hey, this is an option. Okay. Like, let me do everything I can to set myself up for that option. Right. If I want to go back and pivot to doing anesthesia, I can do it. But if I have the option to not do it, like, why not at least have the option? And that's where I think that's where I started seeing wealth a little bit differently. And like, okay, wealth could mean like your portfolio or your net worth or how much money you have in your bank account. But wealth also could mean like, hey, like I could not work and still make the same money, right? That's an option that most people don't have. Or, or I could do this and make double the income if I want to do both, right? And that's also a pretty great option. So I just wanted to increase my options versus before. My only option was showing up in the operating room when someone told me to be there and working the schedule someone gave me and making the money. And if I wanted to make more money, then the only option was work more hours. And so I felt the options were very limited.
Yeah. That's a great point. I mean, wealth investing, how it creates optionality. It allows you to do what you want. And that may include whatever you were doing before, it may not, but the point is it gives you those options, and it's not on someone else's terms, it's on your own. So I think it's a great point. So you talked a lot about kind of the smaller residential and the small multifamily. Tell me about sort of your transition into large multifamily. You said you did a mentorship. Kind of how did you make that switch?
Yeah, so I noticed that I always was consuming content on the larger multifamily. I'm doing all these smaller deals, making nice income, getting equity gains, getting some cash flow from the rentals. And I was learning a ton and enjoying it, really enjoying it. But like, okay, how can I scale this to close the income gap? Right? Can I build 20 more duplexes? Maybe, but that's going to take a while, right? And I'm going to need new partners. How can I scale it? What can I bring to the table? So I did an LP deal. You have to put your money where your mouth is. I started LPing, liked the process, started learning more about that. And I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna keep going with it. So I joined a mentorship program, learned all I could, networking, and you learn some of the how-to, but a lot of these mentorship programs you have access to the Rolodex, right? You're networking with other people. And once you, again, put your money where your mouth is, you're paying 20, 30 grand for a mentorship program. A lot of people are going to take you a lot more serious versus you're just kind of reading books, kind of being a weekend warrior, just talking about it. So I did that and just dove right into it. And I consider these mentorship programs as just like a thorn in your side, even though they're great. It's just kind of like, okay, I put the money, you better do the work, right? And so you're just learning a lot. And then to kind of switch into it to try to get on the GP side, I just started calling all the operators, and I wanted to call all the Texas operators. I live in Texas. I invest in Texas. I have, I like the growth of Texas. I like the story of Texas in general. So I started calling all the Texas operators and saying like, look, what would it take for me to get on your general partnership team? This is what I'm up to. I'd like to at least raise money for your deal. I'd like to be a co-GP. And that's where I started. I co-GP'd a deal. It was an Austin deal. And I met this operator off of Facebook. It's kind of crazy. I met him off of Facebook. We had some great conversations. We went to lunch multiple times. His wife was in the medical field, so we had a connection there. And and it just happened like they were negotiating this deal, and he was like, I think this is the perfect deal for you to do your first raise. Let's go for it. And I almost didn't do it, honestly. Like I was like, I had a lot of self-doubt. I'm like, I don't know if I'm ready. And he was like, look, dude, you're never going to be ready. Like you're never going to feel ready. You just got to do it. And so I did it. And I ended up, basically 3Xing my commitment to him. And then, I kept, that was a great raise. And then that just kind of got me into marketing and trying to understand that a little bit more. And so like, that was kind of, I kind of shifted into once I saw that I could do that, I kind of shifted into looking at like not really raising money, it's list building, right? And so like, okay, if you break it down, like raising capital, like, yeah, you need to raise money, but you need to have investors and you need to get investors in your database. And from your database, you need to get them content so they understand exactly what you're doing. So I started list building after that. Like after that first raise, I just put list building into like hyperdrive. Basically, I started out with a list of maybe, let's say, 300 investors, right? That I had built organically, mostly friends and family and just colleagues and whatnot. And I think I was able to scale that, like, basically 5x that in maybe 8 months just from marketing. And I'm like, okay, like this works. And, my two partners that I had partnered with in Austin, they were like, okay, like, well, we're kind of missing that component, right? We're missing the component, the investor relations component, the content producer, the list builder. And so now, like, it's off of a Facebook call a little over 2 years ago, like I have an entity with, 2 other individuals and like we're permanent partners. So it's just networking, putting yourself out there and just going for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great strategy to take, especially when you're, making those phone calls, the reaching out to people, the operators in the markets you want to be in. That's a fantastic strategy. What did you do to build that list? I think that's a very important thing for people to kind of understand that because I know that that's a difficult process. So what did you do? And I'm sure that was quite a bit of work, so what sort of action steps did you take?
Well, like as I'm doing all these smaller deals, especially in Houston, I'm just talking to everyone in the operating room. Like, this is what I'm doing. Hey, you want to see pictures of this duplex that I'm building? Check it out. And then I would just almost plant the seed, like, hey, eventually I'm going to be buying like 100+ unit deals. Just telling them straight up, maybe we'll do a deal together. They'll be like, oh yeah, sure. And then as you kind of keep consistently doing, like, oh, I'm building another project. Oh, I just sold this flip. Yeah. They're like, okay, you're kind of gaining the momentum, whereas like you're not just talking about it, you're doing it, right? Same thing with the LP deals, just showing people, hey, look, I invested in this deal in Houston with these guys. It's pushing off cash flow. This is the projected returns. It just stimulates conversation. So I did that organically, and just almost everyone that I had an organic conversation with, I put them on my phone, just on an Apple Note, right? It's okay. I talked to John, talked to Jason, talked to this person. And then whenever you start list building, I think you just kind of have those mental notes. Like, look at all these people that I talked to in real estate. There's like 250 people, all not really in real estate, that I've talked to about real estate. Mm-hmm. I just started reaching out to those individuals. Hey, Roy, remember these duplexes I'm building? I'm looking to start buying apartment complexes. I'd love to send you my monthly newsletter, right? And if these people already somewhat know you or have interacted with you, they're most likely going to say yes, right? And so that's kind of how I started organically, just building it up like that. Started sending them an email, just a monthly newsletter, just say, hey, this is what I've been up to. This is the smaller deals I've been doing. These are the bigger deals I've been doing. Check it out. And here's the blog post, right? You're sharing content. You're just educating. As I kind of went through that entire list and was like, okay, I've exhausted most of the people that I know. Then most of my, I guess, investor flow now comes from LinkedIn.
Okay.
LinkedIn, Facebook as well, but mostly LinkedIn.
Yeah. And are there, you hear about, I guess Yona Weiss is maybe, I don't know, at least a person that you hear the most about, sort of leveraging LinkedIn as for connections. What do you do to build that through LinkedIn? Like, I think what you just talked about from organically growing that list, talking to the people in the OR, we mentioned before, it's like basically everyone I know is a vet and it's like, and I'm doing that as well. But then at some point you have to get outside the people that you actually know. If you're truly going to be a capital raiser, if that's your focus, that's, you need that list to be large. So what are you doing then to kind of grow that outside of those personal connections?
Well, I'm learning on the fly with LinkedIn as well. I've seen some of Yona's stuff, and I started following just people that are doing it on LinkedIn. Not necessarily apartment people, though, right? Like some people that do real estate, but not that many people. Not that many. You follow these other individuals on LinkedIn that have 300,000-400,000 followers. Like, how do they do it? How do they stimulate conversation and posting? You have to post quite a bit. And that would kind of, I'm just starting to post a lot more. I'm trying to post 3 or 4 times, but the posts have to just be more than, here's this blog post, right? Because that's not, if you post, here's this blog post, you're going to maybe get a couple of interactions, and that's not that much, right? So, but if you post something that you're actually doing, like, hey, I just bought this apartment complex in Houston, check it out. That's going to get a lot of just a lot of interaction, right? People want to see, okay, like this is a deal. Let me check it out. And so and then I reach out to individuals. I'm connect, reach out, private message them, say hello, introduce yourself, just like you would do at a meetup, right? You're going to go to a meetup, you're shaking hands. Here's my card, scan my info into your phone. Let's connect after. You're almost just treat LinkedIn or even Facebook as a meetup, right? But you can just do it at scale from the social media platform with people that don't live in your area.
Yeah, that's fantastic advice. And I think the idea of following people not necessarily in the real estate space is a really good one, because there's a lot of people in the real estate space that are good on social media and have put out a lot of good content, things like that. But there's a lot of people outside of the real estate space that are doing it as well, whether that's in business or what, but just kind of seeing the different, observing the different techniques that people are using, the different strategies. It's actually a really great idea.
Yeah. And we talked about changing your identity. I think like social media is a way to change your identity at scale, right? So you can change your identity to the people that you work, but that's just hitting the small subset of people that work at this vet or at this hospital, right? But okay, I want to change it to everyone that knows me. So that's Facebook probably is going to be more, close to friends and family. And maybe you have business associated people on there, but then LinkedIn is probably going to be much more focused on like, probably all your veterinarian people, right? And so that's just the way to do it.
Yeah, it's great. It makes total sense. What's next for you? What are you? I know you've done some multifamily deals. Is that kind of you've got these partners now? You're continuing to acquire new assets. That's kind of the plan.
Yeah, so I have two partners, and we kind of fit together well. One is the director of acquisitions. He has 5 years of broker relations. He has 1,400 units as a lead sponsor, so he has the deal flow. And then we have another partner, Brian. I mean, he's an engineer. He's the underwriting guy, the spreadsheet guy, the finance guy, and so he does the numbers. And for me, like I'm investor relations. I'm always talking to individuals. I also do construction management at this time. Like I build these small multis around Houston. Yeah. And so, I go to the projects, make sure the rehabs are getting done. I'm not swinging a hammer. I'm just making sure the hammers are being swung and running the budgets. And yeah, so we actually have a buyer interview today on a 250 unit deal in Houston. Hopefully we get it. So we're constantly offering, we've lost a lot of close ones recently, but we're, keep staying positive and, keep pushing, and find great opportunities and, underwrite them conservatively, make sure our debt is right on it, especially right now. And, we hope to bring an investment to investors pretty soon.
Yeah. Awesome. That's great. Best of luck on that call to you today. Those are always a fun process, but it just seems like a bunch of awkward questions and things like that. But yeah, I guess it's part of the game. All right, well, let's switch gears, and I'll go ahead and ask you the questions I like to ask every guest. First one being really just the name of the show. What is your why, Ryan? What drives you? What's kind of motivating you towards success?
I would say like my why is kind of going through like this evolution right now. So for years, probably for the last 5 years, my why was to go part-time or quit my job. So I just achieved that in April. So now I kind of have like this why reset. Okay, like, so what's that's gone, check that box off. Done and over with. I'm not gonna, I'm happy, but I'm not gonna like, sit down and, I'm not gonna relax now, right? You got to keep pushing. Right. And so, a couple of them like business related, we want to build a company, a GenWealth Capital that's lasting, right? Like when stay going, keep buying assets, and then eventually, when we're going to give it to our families, right? And so we want to build like a company that produces wealth, not just for us, but like for generations to come. That's what our company's name is, GenWealth Capital. And then, kind of more on the personal side, I want my son is an 8-year-old son, and I want him to follow my journey, right? So he knows that he can do anything. Like he knows that I used to work in the operating room. He knows that I don't work in the operating room anymore, and he knows why. And so like he's following my journey. He goes to all my new construction projects. He went and did some drive-bys and some deals with me this weekend, and we were kind of like scouting deals in Houston. And so he's, in the back seat trying to take it all in. I'm on calls talking about the deal, and he's picking up things, right? And so, I just want to teach him like, hey, there is another way. And, you can do anything, but you have to put in the work for sure. So that's a big why, is just mentoring my son.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, they're always listening, right? Even when you don't think that you're listening, they're always listening. And yeah, having them come on those property tours with you and stuff, I think is a great idea, just to get them exposure and letting, whether they go into the business or not, right? It's a valuable investment vehicle. Even if they decide to do something else, they can use it, kind of to help fund whatever else they want to do in their life. So very cool. Tell us something about yourself that maybe isn't common knowledge, a special skill, a hobby, something to kind of let the listeners know you a little bit better.
Yeah. So like you can say I'm like an ultimate extrovert. I like to be shaking hands. I like to talk to people. I like meeting people. I can strike up a conversation with pretty much anyone. And that, I think, helped me like in the patient care arena, just because, I like to build a relationship with the patients. Right. And so I'm always trying to just build relationships, whether it's with a patient, whether it's an investor, a seller, some guy that I'm sitting at the bar with. It's just, I'm a pretty friendly guy. So, please feel free to reach out at any time, via LinkedIn, if you're connected with me. If not, let's connect for sure.
Yeah. And well, that's perfect segue to the third question, which is, how would you like people to connect to you? We'll put whatever you want in the show notes.
Yeah. So you can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm under Ryan Johnson, CRNA, as well as Ryan at GenWealthCapital.com. I'd love to have a conversation with you.
Perfect. We'll get that out for people. Final question for you, Ryan. What piece of advice would you give to someone who is, kind of getting started? They're trying to begin their real estate journey, grow their business, that sort of thing. What would you tell them?
I would say that, you're always going to have imposter syndrome, especially if you're trying to, switch from, like, say, being a vet to being a real estate investor. You're always you're not going to know everything. There are different mentorship programs, but it's not like, you go to vet school and like you take this test once you graduate and like you're expected to be like this, like entry level veterinarian practicing. Being an entrepreneur, I mean, one of the good things about it is like you're not kind of stuck in that field, and you can pivot very, very quickly. But there's no necessarily how to book, and you're always going to feel intimidated. But just pick up that phone, call someone a few steps ahead of you, call someone that has more knowledge ahead of you. And kind of, I look at things like going into deals or just relationships. I always have one hand down and one hand up. In other words, like I'm always trying to pull someone that maybe is trying to go in the direction that I'm going up with me, but then I'm always looking for a hand up to talk to people that have more experience with me, to share their wisdom and knowledge to kind of pull me up as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love that one hand up, one hand down thing. I think it's a great way to look at it. Try and bring someone along with you too is a really, that sort of give back impact type of mentality as you move through the business.
Yeah. I mean, it only takes sometimes people just need one opportunity, right? And if they have that opportunity and they crush it, they have a skill or a superpower that they didn't even know they had. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. Well, listen, thank you very much for coming on and sharing your story. I think it's really compelling for other medical professionals, but I think just anyone hearing that kind of story of transition from one career to real estate, it is about identity. But it's also about, sort of hard work and you got to where you were as an anesthetist through hard work and education. It's not all that different in the real estate space. Just kind of keep getting out there and pushing through. So thank you, Ryan, for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me, Jason. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right. We'll go ahead and sign out.
I'd like to show you why knowing your why is the start of your journey. Without a strong why, it can be so difficult to reach your maximum potential. My name is Dr. Jason Balara, and every week I meet with real estate investors and mindset specialists that are taking action in order to build a life according to their own terms. We will break down what drives successful people and allows them to achieve at such a high level. If you are a professional wanting to break through, or simply someone that wants to hear an inspiring story, the Know Your Why podcast is made for you.